Hey everyone, this is official announcement of SaasRock 0.7. I'm a bit scared because it has a ton of new features and I'm sure there will be bugs here and there. The structure of this video will be on small chapters where you can skip to the specific chapter you want to learn more about, like SaasRock new pricing, about the Git changes, starting from a clean install, about the auto-generated CRUD routes, CRM and email marketing folder structure, importing contacts, custom views for everyone or for the current user, sending email marketing campaigns, the new API with this new environment variable, viewing rows as an admin for all the application rows or admin specific rows or tenant specific rows, minor improvement on pagination, logs, JSON details viewer, and some other minor improvements like the settings screen and that it no longer has TypeScript errors. And the first contributions from the community, which is GitHub and Gmail SSO, and my plans for November and December for the Enterprise Edition. And I will be making another video on migrating my instance of demo.saasrock and SaasRock.com to this release. Starting with the new SaasRock pricing, I have already updated the new prices on Gumroad, and I will be doing that as well on SaasRock.com, which is the instance of SaasRock for SaasRock, to start accepting payments on Stripe and subscriptions. Thank you to all my early supporters. SaasRock is still on alpha, but I hope you have enjoyed the framework until now. And if you have, please give it a rating. About the number of Git changes for this release, yes, there will be breaking changes, especially for the entity builder, which is the entities API, the rows API, and auto-generated CRUDs, but please don't be scared. I will help you migrate, especially if you are a long-time supporter that got stuck in a previous version like 0.3 or 0.4. And I will fix as much as I can this week because I know there will be bugs on this first release. Now let's start with a fresh install. You need to be comfortable using Prisma commands. For example, Prisma migrate updates your database using the migrations files. Prisma migrate reset is for resetting the database data, and running Prisma migrate seed is in case the initial migration didn't seed your database. This sometimes happens on production databases. You can run the initial seed with this command. So let's start and run this initial command, and just in case you want to see how the migrate reset works, it warns you that all data will be lost, but since we're on development, it doesn't matter. But be careful, because if you're using an environment variable for your production database, it will delete it. So now let's run the application. Of course, you need to run first npm install or yarn. And once it's running, the landing page will look like this. Let's go ahead and log in as the admin user, which is an environment variable as well. And this is the initial screen where I have not set the pricing, and I have already set the email templates for Postmark. And this is just a fresh install, so I don't have any entity. I will have some users and accounts and some roles and permissions, and you can change the behavior of roles and permissions from the seed itself instead of manually adding roles and permissions. Auto-generated routes for the entity CRUD is a major improvement for this release. So let's talk about how that works. We have a folder called entity and this auto-generated alias that contains all the files that make possible for all the CRUD. Let me show you how it looks. here on routes, admin, entities, entity, no code, we have this folder which contains all the files. For example, this is the list, this is the new form, this is the overview form, the edit form, and all the others. So this folder has an exact copy for the application side or for the tenant side. So you should modify here and then delete the folder on app tenant, this one, and replace it with that. Because this folder supports both admin and tenant entities. So let's take a look at how it looks by creating an entity. We'll go to entities and create a simple one called task with one property called name. And let's go to the no code routes. These blocks point to each one of these files. So for example, the list will give you a list of tasks, and the plus will redirect you to the new route, which is this one. So how do routes know how to connect to each other? There is a custom mapping. Let me show you on the list called entity helper get no code routes, where if we're on admin, this is the folder or the route that it needs to point for the list, and this for the new overview, edit, import, export, and public. And if we are on the tenant side, it's the same, except here is the app and the tenant's log or the ID. This is because you can customize your folder or routing structure. And this also helps the all-in-one route to connect to each one of these features. For example, the all-in-one is this one, where it can add new entity rows without changing the route. That's possible because I pass this new mapping, so the fetcher from Remix connects to that or loads from that and calls the action there. To summarize, the admin folder contains the folder that contains every no-code route, and this should be exactly as this one. So either modify this one and copy paste here, or modify this one and copy paste here. So I suggest you that you decide early and maybe work on the admin side to test and build your application before deploying to your tenants. So this is the mapping that I talked about here. And let me show you how the CRM custom mapping works. Like this is the no-code mapping default for admin. But since the CRM is based on CRM entities, well, I have not configured the CRM entities. So let's load them real quick by going to entities, templates, manual, CRM, and create all 4 entities and go to the CRM again. So as you can see here is the auto-generated routes as well, but let me show you how it looks. So here we are on admin, CRM, and we have an index that it's just the overview, and here it's the menu. Like it loads these entities and puts them here. So this is the custom routing that I told you before. So for example, contacts, this view is auto-generated all in one. So what I did is go to the CRM folder, and here, as you can see, is the folder that contains auto-generated routes. And here I replaced this content with the all-in-one file that is located on entities, entity no code, all-in-one. So I copied all this content and put it on the CRM. So all my CRM entities work for all-in-one. And let me show you, by creating a contact, it will return to the table, but if we want to edit it, we can as well. And if we want to go to the overview route, this button will redirect to my mapping. And since I'm not overriding it, it will redirect me to the default, which is the one I showed you before, like no code here. And one important aspect of working with entities is that you need to understand that tenant ID undefined is not equals to null, meaning that whenever you see that the tenant ID parameter is undefined, is that we are admins and we are not telling the database to filter that property, so we will get all the entity rows. But if we set to null, it will load all the admin rows. And if, of course, the tenant ID contains a value, it will filter all the tenant rows. Let me show you real quick. Here on the rows, I have two rows from the admin. If I filter, I can select the admin or a specific tenant. If I select the admin, it will tell to look for tenant ID equals to null. And if I select one tenant, it will select that tenant ID value. But since I'm not selecting and I'm on the admin side, it will give me every row. So if I switch to the tenant and create another contact, but this is tenant, and go back to the admin and see on entities rows, I can see all the application rows, but I can filter specific tenants like this. So there's an important distinction between whenever tenant ID contains null, or it's undefined, or contains a value. The same principle applies for CRM and email marketing routing structure. It contains on the admin the exact copy for the app. Let me show you. If we go to the CRM, you can see there's one file and one folder with the auto-generated routes. And by the way, you can replace this folder with the other one, this one, to give you all these routes, like importing or exporting. Well, the only one can export, but it doesn't have the overview. As you saw, the only one, whenever you click on edit, it can redirect to this overview route. So back to the CRM structure. Here I am on the routes admin CRM, but it's the exact same structure for the app. Here I am on the CRM. As you can see, this looks exactly the same. CRM, auto-generated, CRM, auto-generated, and the file that contains the sidebar menu. So like on entities, don't apply your changes for the CRM on only one side. I suggest you to do all the personalization for the CRM and entity builder and email marketing from the admin, and then copy paste the corresponding folders and files. The email marketing is the same, where I have email marketing with campaigns and senders folder and 3 files, and on the app side, email marketing with those 2 folders and those 3 files. So this way, my email marketing feature works for my tenants as well. And Here, the basic structure is email senders, activity of outbound emails, and campaigns. So on the tenant side, they will have also the ability to create email senders, send email campaigns, and track the activity for their outbound emails. And another important thing is that CRM is fully auto-generated. Contacts, companies, opportunities, and submissions. So let's take a look at the entities on the admin. Here are 3 entities that are both admin and app entities, meaning that this works for my tenants and for my admins. But as you can see, submissions is a CRM entity, but it's only admin because submissions connect to the /contact. So I can create a contact submission here, and let's say this to test2, and it will create a contact on the admin side. And it will say it comes from the form, it has 1 submission, and it's the status of a contact. But this contact is admin, so it should not be on your tenants. Your tenants contain their own contacts, companies, and opportunities. The reason I did this, as I told you on the previous videos, is because I'm planning to import my Gumroad and ConvertKit subscribers or newsletter subscribers, so I can start sending email campaigns to them from SaasRock. CRM is entirely built on top of the entity builder, meaning that I don't have any model on the database for contacts, companies, submissions, and opportunities. But what if you want to start customizing it fully besides the no-code routing system? You can do that by taking the example of the CRM module on the CRM service file, where I created DTOs and made an example for each CRUD functionality. What I mean by that is, if we go to the CRM service file and look at all the functions that it provides, I can get contacts based on raw IDs, and it will return a contact DTO. And a contact DTO is like this, where I have typed properties, email, name, job title, marketing, subscribers. Of course, these need to be created before I can manage, I can start using the contact DTO feature. Like, take for this example, I can get the contact with the get row by ID, and I can get the email with this helper, row value helper, get text for this entity, which is the contacts entity, and I pass the row and the property name, and it will return a text. And the same goes for booleans and numbers. And even with relationships, like companies own contacts, so I can get all my companies from this row, which is a contact, by selecting the parent rows where the parent entity is the company. I know it's tricky, but it gives you a lot more power than building it yourself, because you will need to create CRUD for companies, opportunities, submissions, and contacts. But you will lose audit logs, permission checkers, and of course the auto-generated CRUDs for every aspect. And the same goes for these functions, like creating a company, creating a contact, creating a submission, updating a contact. Let's see how the create contact looks. So we pass the typed values, name, value, job title, status, marketing, subscribers, and the tenant ID owner. And here are my values. So I have this helper that get the row properties from this form that I'm sending. So for this property, I'm passing the name. For the email property, I'm passing the email. And for the marketing subscriber, I'm sending whether it's true or false, because this is in form format. And finally, I call the rows API to create this row. And this rows API contains all the necessary basic functions that you need for managing rows. The get all, the typical get, the typical create, the typical update, deletion, counting, getting tasks, finding based on properties, and creating a relationship, deleting a relationship, and adding a tag, removing a tag, and all that. I built that API so I can manage my contacts entirely with DTOs. So I have this also this update contact function as well, where I select the row and I pass this row value helper update. So this row value helper update needs the entity, the row, and the changes. I'm just changing the marketing subscriber property, and you can see how I'm using update contact on the postmark webhook. When I receive a record type of subscription change, so if it's unsubscribed, I update the contact to be a marketing subscriber to false. So you can take this, for example, to build on top of your entities. Now let's try to import contacts. First, let's try the happy path where it will not give an error. So this, if I want to import my contacts, I can go on the admin side on the import no code route. And I have 3 files ready. Here is the file that contains, I think, 22 contacts. It will load every column. I don't want the ID, I don't want the folio, the created date. I want the name, the email, job title, status, and whether it's a marketing subscriber or not. And I have all these rows, but here note that I have these 4 duplicated values. So I want to make email primary. So if I click here, it will say now 20 rows instead of 22. So I can import to my contact entity. And I can also remove like the first 5 and import them and tag them like import to. So this should return the ID for each one of the contacts. So if I go back to the CRM contacts, I have all these new contacts and with a tag import to, so I can know whether they come from ConvertKit or MailChimp or Mailgun or Gumroad. Now let's try to import contacts with errors. Let's go to the tenant side now and go to CRM. Here I cannot import because this is the all-in-one route. We need, if we want to copy and paste, like I told you, this auto-generated route within the CRM here. So we can delete this and paste this. And let's see if the mapping is correct. So this is building because I created a lot of files. So let's wait and refresh. So yeah, now it's not the auto-generated all-in-one route. It gives me all the routes. For example, if I click here, it will redirect me to the overview and I can share this contact and I can go to /import and import some contacts. Now let's try with the ones with errors. The error is that some of them don't have name, and name is a required property. So here's a preview. There are about 10 contacts without name. So if we import them and tag them as tenant. These 10 rows will give an error while these will be imported. So if we try to import them again, it will not let us until we fix those contacts. And if we go back to our contacts, we have the successfully imported one. But look at this mapping error. If I click on a contact, it will redirect me to the default no-code routes, which is not on the CRM folder, like this. You see, contacts instead of CRM/contacts, and it will not be the CRM selected on the sidebar because we're not on the CRM folder right now. So to fix that, we need to map correctly this folder or routing. So we can do that by going to the entity helper get no code routes function, and here copy paste. First check whether the URL starts with the tenant, but with CRM. So if we are on the CRM mapping, we're going to return this specific /CRM mapping structure. So let's refresh this and refresh this page as well. So if we click now, we will be redirected to the correct mapping structure where we can update the permission or create tags, edit them in the correct routing structure so we don't lose access to the sidebar or navigation. And let's take a look at our contacts. And here we have the tenant tag for my created. So from this tenant, I have 13 contacts, and as an admin, I have 17. So if we go to entities and click rows and select the entity contact, we should have the sum of both, which is 30. But if you don't want your tenants to have access to the CRM or email marketing, you can go to the entities and update contacts, opportunities, and companies to be admin only. Let's try from the tenant side. Now CRM and email marketing will disappear. But for now, I will keep companies, opportunities, and contacts both enabled on the admin and app side. Custom views is another addition on the new entity builder, because previously you could only create different views for everyone, but now each user can create their own views. Let me show you. Talking about the CRM, we can go to our admin side and click on the contacts and create a view that filters all the contacts. So leads won't show up on the default view. So go to the CRM and click on contacts. We have contacts only. And since this is default view, I don't have a navigation here, but I, as a user, can go, let me show you as a tenant, here and create view, click on create view and say leads only. And filter leads. So if I refresh, I should have the default one and the leads only one. And this leads only is only for me. So if I log out or impersonate a user that has access to this same account, like John Doe, I won't have that custom view that I created as the admin user, but I can create another view that says leads, my leads, and make the same filter, but for this user. And since I'm the creator of this, I need to restart the application because it's been a while since I have been with this demo. So give me a second. And where was I? Oh yeah, I can update these leads view and even delete it. But that will be for this specific John Doe user. Email marketing actually uses custom views in a real world scenario because you need to select a list of contacts. And if you have not created a custom view for that, it will select all your contacts, but we don't want that. We want to segmentate. So let's try the email marketing feature first as an admin. So the same as before, email marketing and is working on the tenant side as well as for the admin. So let's log in as the admin again and go to email marketing, go to sender, and let's create a new sender. And let's create a new broadcast from Postmark. And I'm naming this testing admin. And it's a broadcast. So let's go to settings and copy this ID first and put it here on the stream ID, and copy the server API token and put it here. And I need to have previously created this sender signature, and let's say testing from admin. Well, let's just leave it like this and save this and send a test email to see if this is working, and go to the activity for this broadcast. It should have sent one. So here it is, and here's the activity. And now let's do the same but for one tenant. So test tenant broadcast, and let's log in as, or switch to the email marketing from the tenant side. Go to email senders and put the ID here and copy this new server API token on the API key field, and let's create another sender just for this tenant. Let's say this Acme Corp 1, and I need to create that sender signature, SaasRock from Acme Corp, and we can save this and send a test. Let's delete this test. And this is the test email from the tenant side. So let's create a campaign on the admin side. And let's give it a name of admin campaign 1. And my sender is this one. My subject, test from admin. My body, and this is what I was talking about before, that you can use custom views for selecting contacts. If I select this list, it will select all the corresponding contacts. But I just want marketing subscribers because email marketing won't let you send to not email marketing subscribers. Let's take a look. If I click on save, it will say 10 out of 10 contacts are not marketing subscribers. So first, let's go to the CRM and mark some of them as marketing subscribers. And let's set this one to marketing subscriber, but that is a lead, not a contact. So we want to create a view that are contacts and subscribers. So select the status to contact and the marketing subscriber to true. So we will have two. and going back to the email marketing campaign screen, admin 123, admin 321, and we can select this contacts and subscribers list, and we can preview how will look this email. So let's do that. So this is the preview. Since I did not select a contact, it will not fill out the variables, but let's try sending the preview but to one of our contacts, like the number 22 preview. And now here we have the variables for that contact, which is the name, email, job title, and the company name. So we can do that as well on the tenant side, but it will be redundant. So I'm just going to save this draft, and we can send this to two contacts or send a preview, like a test for every one of the contacts. Let's do that. So we should have two emails, the number 1 for this contact and the number 2 for this one. But we are not tracking the opens. So on the activity, it will say that this has not been delivered, which is wrong. So we want to go to our admin server, admin broadcast, and turn on the webhook and ngrok, and copy the ngrok HTTP URL and create a webhook pointing to your ngrok URL /webhooks email postmark, and turn on everything you want to track. First, a test. So it's working, so we can save this and send our campaign. Send to two contacts. So it's completed. So I should have gotten two real world or production campaign emails. So this contact should get this email and this one, the corresponding one. And above the tracking, as you can see here, I have opened both emails, and let's try clicking on one link here and go back and refresh. So I clicked on this link. This email marketing feature is pretty complete, but it's still MVP. But what you can do also is creating campaigns and sending to already unsubscribed emails, and it will return errors. Let's do that. But first, let's unsubscribe from this contact where, well, I'm the same email, so it will throw an error on both. But let's do that anyways. So I have tried to send to a recipient that is now inactive, which is this one, the +22. So this campaign is now incomplete. So on my campaigns, I can go to the incomplete ones and look how many of them were delivered and how many of them had errors. And yeah, that's the email marketing feature. The API also had an improvement. Now you can use API access token, that is an environment variable, to bypass the need for a tenant API key. So you can create entities from the API for the admin or a specific tenant. Let's try that. Let's make a CRUD usage as an admin using the employee's entity. So first, let's go to our admin side and create an employee entity. I have this employee sample. So I have now these first name, last name, email, salary, status, and photo properties. So I'm going to use Thunder Client, as I always do, and I'm going to use this route /API/employees, which is the entities log. And let's hide this terminal and call this. So I don't have any employees yet. Let me see which header I'm using. I'm using this one, which is this value, API access token. On my end file, I have that value. So I can use this to select all the rows for employees. If I will tell to create one, this should be post. And here are my employee body. And I'm going to use this API access token and create this post. So I created this. Let's refresh, and now I have one row. So if I go to the employees no code routes, I should have here this employee. So now let's try to select all employees. Now the data will display this row with the total pages of 1, and let's do that let's create some more. So now we have 13, but as we're using the API access token, we can use the tenant ID query param and set it to, if we set it to a wrong tenant, it should throw an error that says account not found, but let's say Acme Corp 1, which is the slug. Now we created this employee on the tenant side. So on the admin side, it should not be there. But if we go to employees, here it should be. But we're using this API access token. For tenants, they need to create API keys if your subscription allows for it, and they will need to use that. So if we use that API key and try to create, it will say that you cannot use tenant ID with an API key. So let's remove this because we are not admins anymore. And now we're going to create another one. Let's go back to employees. Now we have 2. Now let's try to make the number 3 with this. And try to update this one. So let's grab this ID and let's set it to 2. So go to the put method and put the ID and the first name, let's say name 2, and the header, if we used a wrong API, it will say invalid API key, but we can go back and grab our API key here and call it. Now it's updated to name 2, and here it should say 3 calls. And finally, the delete method, we can grab another ID, the first one, and put it here, send, invalid API key, of course, and this time let's use the admin key. Okay, now it says row exists but not in tenant null, because I'm not passing the specific tenant, because if I don't pass the specific tenant, the API will think that I'm trying to delete this for admin employees. So tenant ID equals to Acme Corp 1. So now it's deleted. We try again, row not found. And if we refresh this, row not found. And it should not be here anymore. So a ton of improvement for the API. Let's try one more thing. On the get, if we select all, now it will say total pages 2, but we want the page size to be 20. So now total pages is 1. The maximum constants, the maximum page size is configurable here, which is 100 rows, and the max for export is a lot more, and the default page size is 10. Talking about that, that's the next topic here. Every table that has pagination can now be changed to a specific page size. Let's try that for contacts. Here we can select here and say we want 5 rows per page or 100. And these options you can customize here, like you want to allow only these pagination options. Let's wait for it to refresh and it will reflect here. Or change the custom default page size. We have a lot of rows now. Let's try selecting all application rows from the admin entities rows route. Now we have 48 results with a mix of employees, contacts, and one for the admin and one for the tenant. So we can filter admin rows with this account and go to admin specific rows, which doesn't have an account, or we can select this tenant and filter even the entity, like employee for Acme Corp. And we can see the logs, which is the next topic. We can go to these logs and click on details and see what happened to this request. So you can copy and inspect what changed. And for example, this was created from an API called and this one was created with the admin app access token. So your users can debug and provide customer support in an easy manner. There are so many minor improvements implied on this release that I forgot to include them all, but let's talk about some big one, which is the new settings screen. Here on the admin side, I have this settings screen where I can set my profile, the general settings, the SEO for the landing page, authentication rules like require email verification, require organization name, require name, subscription is required or not to use the tenant side application, allow a subscription before signing up, and or allow sign up without a subscription, and some upcoming features like internationalization, so you can add your custom languages, no code, instead of having to modify the translation files. I have support for English and Spanish, but the idea is that here you can customize every key, so the keys are loaded from the database. And the analytics settings, which is enabled or not, simple analytics or not, plausible or not, Google Analytics tracking ID or not, and this connects to the cookies. So the idea is that you can add your custom cookies here, so you don't have to do it by code, and you can enable, and this is working, like if I go to an incognito tab, I will have this banner, but if I don't want to, click here, so the cookie banner is gone. So this setting screen is pretty important. So here we have the pricing plans. I don't have any pricing plan yet. The transactional email templates from Postmark, and this dangerous button that only resets all these settings. It doesn't delete the plans and it doesn't delete data. I should rename this title. And finally, there were some contributions, thank you for that, for the SaasRock Core edition. They added GitHub and Gmail single sign-on support. GitHub is already working. Gmail, I will be integrating this in a week or two. The GitHub looks like this. So since this user is the same as my user ID, if I click here, I will log in instead of having to remember my password. And whenever someone subscribes it will create an account without requiring a password. And my plans for December or November and December is pretty enterprise focused, because I plan to migrate this SaaS that I have, which is called Delega. Basically, it's a document sharing app between clients and providers. I've talked about this before, but have a look at this as a tenant client. These are my providers, and this is the documentation of each one of the providers. So I intend to migrate these SaaS applications, which I made with my previous boilerplate in a net view Tailwind environment, to SaasRock using Remix, React, Tailwind, Prisma, and all the stack you know. And I will make this as a template for enterprise subscribers. And for that, I need to work on onboarding, because B2B customers need onboarding, and maybe help desk, or internal user communication like an inbox, like chatting support, maybe not real time, but having a notifications banner, or maybe even integrate with Nobu, which is pretty complete to integrate with almost every notification provider, like email, SMS, like all these ones, Twilio, Slack, Mailgun, Postmark, SendGrid, and all that in one platform. But I will check the license if it allows me to integrate it to SaasRock and still make possible for me to sell SaasRock and not make it open source. And finally, I will need to make another video about how I will migrate to 0.7 on the demo on enterprise.saasrock.com and saasrock.com with the new prices and live Stripe API keys. So I hope you liked this release. It's pretty complete. It may seem daunting, but it's worth it. As you saw, I'm trying to make each new module, like CRM and email marketing, both admin and app compatible. So there you go. Thanks for your patience. I know I didn't post a release since 1 month and a half, I think, but I had a bit of a burnout state where I didn't know what to do. I guess I subconsciously knew that the entity builder needed a major makeover, and I was stalling working on SaasRock for like 3 weeks or maybe even 4. So on the new pricing, yes, I will keep the monthly subscriptions, but don't expect monthly updates. I will try to, but this is still a side project. I have I have my job besides my other projects, so I only have so much time for dedicating to SaasRock. But this is my favorite project, and I want it to succeed so much that I'm putting all my energy to this and trying to keep healthy, mentally speaking. So thanks again, and let me know what you think of this release on the Discord server or send me a DM. Thanks.